Good morning. We had some questions today on clarification of the heel pull and the heel turn. And I did cover a lot of that on my last video, but I'm just going to talk about a few things here as far as the situations where we might have rise after a heel pull. And we'll talk a little bit about rise and types of rise in a separate video. But the main clarification is to understand that the heel turn and the heel pull are essentially the same in the mechanics. They're all based on the back walk, tracking one foot next to the other one, striking a match with the heel and letting the foot go to its natural position, adding a curve to that, and always as the closing foot is coming in and relaxes. You can't really see it, but I do have my weight of my free foot, say that's a caressing action, not actually weight, towards the inside of the foot, which means that I'm shaping my ankle and I'm shaping my knee inward. Now I closed my feet on that one. If the feet are together, it's a heel turn. If the feet end up roughly shoulder width apart, it's a heel pull. Normally the heel pull is danced by the man. So the heel pull is danced on 4, 5, and 6 of the natural turn. In foxtrot, it's danced on a hesitation change in the waltz, or in quickstep, it's danced on a hover feather, and it's danced on a hover impetus. Now the hover impetus we talked about last time, and that is not a figure in the syllabus. It's used a lot in the open divisions. And that would be a heel pull action instead of the normal heel turn on an open impetus, followed by a rise. In this case going into promenade, because we're using it instead of an impetus turn on a grouping where we have more momentum. But in our discussion of the heel pull, the shaping of the base is going to be more obvious because the feet are apart. And I did make that point this morning on the lesson this morning. So I'm going to talk about that. So remember, the mechanics are the same, and you could compare the heel pull to a hockey stop. If you see in ice hockey the way they would stop by going to the edges of the feet, the edges of the skates, with the knees parallel, and using that as a stopping action. That's very much what we're feeling here as we're moving into the heel pull action here. Now, is that different than a heel turn? It's not different in the shaping of the feet, but because the feet are together, it's not visible, so there's not quite as much of this inside edge action. My foot will be more relaxed as my feet are closing together. So as I said, as I soften my foot after drawing the heel, we'll relax the foot, and it's not flat. I don't know if you can see that. It's very subtle, so many of the things that we do. It's a little bit more towards the inside of the heel and the inside of the ball of the foot. And so it's tracking back with the ankle in this condition. But because I'm not going to use the approach as it moves to the side of going through the edges like the edge of the skate, you're not going to see that. But it's very true that once my feet come together, when the transfer of weight, I'm exaggerating it now, when the transfer of weight happens, it will always move across the feet. So this gives us a lot of pliability, a lot of ability to be artistic and to maintain a moving balance. Now that is often described as turning through the foot bones. I find some students find that confusing because they don't see that as turn. But inside of my shoes and under the skin, the bones are moving around as I'm rolling from one foot to the other or across the foot. And if I'm rotating the leg bones on top of the feet, that's what we mean, that we're turning through the feet, but we're not turning through the feet in a swiveling manner. So just want to clear that up. Sometimes we use terminology that is confusing. So this is bringing us to the shaping of the base. And we should do every bit as much beauty through our feet, legs, and ankles in the ballroom dances that we do in the Latin. So I want to also bring that point forward. There's more to footwork than just heels and toes and so on, even inside edges. There's artistry and musicality in the way that you use your feet. So I'm only going to talk about this in a few examples and hope that that will carry through to taking a look at everything else. So I'm going to use first the heel turn and then the heel pull. So a lot of this is not visible necessarily to your eye as to what I'm doing in my feet. But what you will see is that the action through the feet and the ankles definitely affects the coordination of the rest of the body, the support from the floor, and those moments where you see pictures in your eye or even with the camera, that you'll see the free leg, the trailing leg, the moving leg, the artistic leg, the picture leg, whatever you'd like to call it, should be always beautiful. So it always has an action, right, moving towards the standing leg, finishing through the foot, finishing through the ankle, and feeling the muscles of the legs and of the trunk drawing the feet together. And there's a great deal of artistry that will be felt with that use of the ankles. Now, it's more than just beauty. That, again, it gives you tremendous stability to be able to move around in your feet and move around in your shoes. We don't want to see ugly positions of rolling outside of the foot. Now, there are many instances where I need to make sure, though, that my weight is felt on the outer rim of my foot. So the outer metatarsal bone and the little toe are very important. It's quite firmly on the floor and there's weight through the outside of the foot. But I'm keeping my big toe pressed down as well. So feel at this moment on my standing foot that the feet are spread out and there's pressure on the big toe and the metatarsal head, and also on the little toe as a lever and the outermost metatarsal bone, which forms sort of a boundary to the outside of your foot. I don't want to release the big toe from the floor. So I can get a lot of dynamic range of moving my center further over that foot as I press the ball of the foot down and have a beautiful dynamic balance. Then my free leg would be drawn, see, with the knee and the ankle inward, caressing the floor, and then if I'm going forward, pushing the penny out. So there's an artistry in that. So you'll notice that when I dance my heel pull, the hockey stop, where we really truly see the inside edge to the whole foot, and then the shaping of the free foot. Now on a hesitation change, we then also close the foot, and that would be described as the inside of the ball of the foot, or the toe. So when we're dancing the natural turn in foxtrot for the man, 4, 5, and 6 is a heel pull, but it's not a true hesitation. We're not going to pause there unless we're planning to do something different than the way it's normally written. So if we're simply going to walk out into another figure, we'll dance the heel pull. The feet are apart. I do have the shaping through my legs, and I would continue to walk forward. Whereas on the hesitation, I will go to the inside of the toe and close the feet. Now the lady is not doing the heel pull, she's doing something that resembles a tango close. And again, if it's a hesitation, she would draw her foot in on the inside of the toe. And once again, then the exceptions for a heel pull being flat or having no rise would be a hover feather, where we're dancing a heel pull, and then we're rising into the hover feather. So that's a bit unusual. Most of the time there is no rise on the heel pull. The hover impetus, again, being an open figure, commences as we would a heel turn, and then we have a pressure rise at the end coming out. So let's leave the heel pull now and the heel turn and just talk a little bit about the shaping of the feet. Now in the technique, in the tango, we always have the discussion of the inside edge of the ball, the inside edge of the foot. Now that's not to say that in the swing dances you're not using the inside edge of the foot. If I'm extending for my second step in waltz, you can see that I have my foot shaped in such a way that it is on the inside of the big toe. That's not mentioned. So we don't have every little detail in the book, and I know some people complain about that. But as it is, it's difficult enough sometimes to use the information there. You will never learn your dancing from the book. The book is a reference, and I think it's an important reference. And if you are having a good teacher and good consistency in your teacher, you know how to dance, you begin to see how the book will help you in reference. It's very helpful for you to see the breakdown of turn and to see how that helps the body's balance. Many times the foot positions are very helpful to know. The technique is not your law so much as it's a record of what happens when we move. And I think it's done very well. There are some things that perhaps we could go into more detail. For instance, an alignment of backing the line of dance and commencing a turning figure. We do need to know that we accomplish roughly an eighth of a turn as we begin our stride. Those things are not broken down in the book. So you need to learn those in your lessons. If we have every single detail, it may be too wordy. But I know there are people trying to improve on that, and perhaps we can. On the other hand, if you understand the technique, then you can understand the way that it's written. So generally what will happen there is you'll be given your division of turn between steps, division of turn between 1 and 2, completion of turn on 3, and we have additional helpful phrases as to whether we have a foot swivel or whether we have a body completes the turn. So I have talked about this before in some of my discussions on the technique. So we'll move on from there. I wanted to talk about the inside edge, which is not always mentioned, but assumed. That is not only part of the beauty, but also as I transfer my weight, then from one foot to the other, I will go across my foot again to where I have the platform to stand on. And if you were to go flat to the foot, you would overbalance to the outside. If we look at a chasse, now this for the man would be the chasse to the right, or for the lady a progressive chasse. I'll dance a very small one in this room. It's very important here that the ankle of the trailing leg is shaped inward, not just flat. You're very aware of the direction and the action of the tracking foot. So regardless which partner I'm doing that, I would be clear about how I'm using my foot. So we'll just cover those couple points. I think it's related to our discussion this morning of how to use the feet in the heel pull, and hopefully I've covered a few of those questions that arose. So the heel turn, the feet are together. The heel pull, the feet are partially apart. When the man dances a heel turn, his rise is slightly later than the lady would do, because he's in charge of keeping control over the dance. So where the lady would commence to rise with no foot rise, slight rise at the end of 1, this is at the end of 2. So when the man is dancing in his turn, he would not rise quite as soon as the lady, or he would lose control over her shaping. So we could talk about every single figure. Obviously in the tango, all your inside edges are described. All of your side steps are described as inside edge and whole foot. And I think it's a very helpful exercise to do to develop those ankles. Make sure that the free foot is angling and you never have 2 heels on the floor. So just a small discussion of a few figures. And we'll come back and we'll talk about the other questions we had this morning on types of rise, another big topic. And I may do that in 2 videos as well, so we can talk about swing rise, pressure rise, early rise, gradual rise, foot rise, body rise, some of the other questions that have come up.